Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah. And the stress, I think the stress, like somehow figure out a way to.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. We'll start our program shortly. Before we do that, I want to thank you all for joining us here at City Club of Eugene. Our December 1st program, Bethel, Past, Present, and Future of Eugene's Community Within a City. My name is Joel Corin, and I'm a past president of City Club. Today, City Club comes to you live from the 5th Street Market District in the heart of downtown Eugene, and it's my pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our speakers and to all joining us in person, online, or on the radio. For 3 decades, City Club of Eugene has remained dedicated to its founding mission to build community vision through open inquiry. In accordance with our mission and purpose, we hope to help connect people throughout the community across generations, identities, experiences, and perspectives. You are invited this week and every week to join us in this effort, to share your wisdom, learn from something new, take active steps to make a difference in this city and region that we love. Of course, we cannot do this work alone. Special thank you to our Platinum Community and Diamond sponsors, Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce, okay, thank you. Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce, serving as a catalytic leader in creating a vibrant and diverse economy that drives economic opportunity and well-being. Kaiser Permanente exists to provide high-quality, affordable health care services and to improve the health of our members and the communities we serve. More information available on kp.org. The University of Oregon has helped Oregonians to question critically, think logically, reason effectively, communicate clearly, act creatively, and live ethically since 1876. More information at uoregon.edu. Peace Health has been proud to serve Eugene, Lane County, and beyond as your hometown healthcare partner for more than 80 years. The Peace Health mission is to keep you and your family healthy. Learn more at peacehealth.org. Lane Community College transforms lives through learning. LCC provides comprehensive, accessible, high-quality educational opportunities that promote student success. For more information, visit lanecc.edu. AARP of Oregon is a trusted and positive force for social change using the experience and leadership of volunteer members to benefit all Oregonians. And thank you to the City of Eugene and Lane County for their support. Whether joining us for the first time or a long-time member, I invite you to support our work by becoming a member, a business community sponsor, or to suggest ideas for upcoming programs. You can do all of these things and more at cityclubofeugene.org. Your support and engagement makes these community conversations possible. And of course, City Club isn't just about conversation. It's about taking that conversation and translating it into action. It is our hope that with informed understanding, you will engage in the issues impacting the communities. In March 2016, City Club invited key community leaders from the Bethel neighborhood, located in West Eugene and bounded by Highway 99 on the east, Green Hill Road on the west, Clear Lake Road on the north, and Southern Pacific Coos Bay Line on the south, for a conversation about building a better Bethel. 7 years later, Eugene City Council is considering what neighborhood to focus on next for planning. With active Bethel Community Neighborhood Association, those are the folks in the yellow vests, pushing that it be Bethel. Today we'll focus on the future of Bethel, its unique strengths as well as its challenges, the opportunities that come from them, by welcoming local leaders for a timely conversation. Joining us today is Lane County Commissioner Pat Farr, Chair of the Eugene Budget Committee, Ty Pruce Zimmerman, and Superintendent of the Bethel School District, Dr. Craig Sproles. We'll start with Ty.
Hi. Is the microphone good? Thank you very much, everyone, for having me here. My name is Ty Pruce Zimmerman. I am the co-chair of the Active Bethel Community Neighborhood Association, and I'm very excited to talk tonight for those of you listening on the radio in a couple nights, about all the strengths that I love about Bethel, why I love my community so much, as well as our areas of growth. Before I dive into that, I'll start with a little bit of background on myself. Professionally, my background is in accounting, but for the past 3 years, I've gotten to enjoy a much better job. I am now a stay-at-home dad to the most adorable son. Any of you who are on my Facebook page know what I'm talking about. I also do a little bit of consulting statistical work for chess.com, and I am very active in a wide range of civic engagement. I chair the city's budget committee. I'm also on the board of directors for Well Mama, a nonprofit dedicated to providing pregnancy and postpartum support services to new expectant and grieving parents. I'm currently on the Bethel School District's long-range planning committee, and other things that I've done in the past include various board and subcommittee services for Square One Villages, the Sierra Club, other committees with both the City of Eugene and the Bethel School District, and beyond that, some others I can't remember in the moment. So, nice relaxing schedule. I've been in Bethel since 2015. I was born and raised in Eugene, left for college in 2002, and spent a little over a decade bouncing around Southern Oregon. And when it came time for my wife and I to find a place to settle down where we knew we would want to raise our family, coming back to Eugene was the option that made sense. And it was then a happy accident of the housing market that landed us in a rental in Bethel. We fell in love very quickly with the neighborhood, with the school district, with the community we found, and it was a very easy decision when we were ready to buy a house in 2017 to buy something in Bethel as well. And that remains where we are and where we shall stay. And from there, I was already starting to engage at the city level in various ways I could be involved in the community, and I started looking more locally at what I could do in the neighborhood. That was when I found the report, Building a Better Bethel, published in 2015, that was referenced in our introduction here. And so it had a bunch of great ideas, none of which I could see being actively implemented. So I reached out to a number of our elected officials in the area asking how could I help with it. And to a T, every one of them said, please reactivate the neighborhood association. And I said, by myself, no. Too big a task for one person. But then as that year went on, I started finding in a couple spots, a few different people that independently also kind of wanted to work on that. So I brought everyone together. By the end of 2017, we had a steering committee, and 17 meetings later, the city approved reactivation. We held an election to elect our first board, and I became co-chair of ABC. So that's how we got to where we are with having a neighborhood association active. And one of the best things that happened in that reactivation meeting is Lynn Woodrich, who's out in our audience tonight, showed up. She took on the role initially of event chair, and by the second year, she was the co-chair. And she's been a boots on the ground force that's really helped ABC do a whole bunch of amazing things in our community. We've been holding as many community events as we can. We brought back the We Are Bethel annual celebration that had been on pause. We've been supporting food pantries in the neighborhood and in the schools, organizing gatherings in the parks, holding meetings with representatives from the police department to focus on public safety options in the neighborhood, help people establish neighborhood watch units, organizing recycling drives, and so much more. In addition to all of those pieces, today with talking about the future of Bethel, the thing that I think we've done that ties into that most directly is we organized a visioning project over the past year or so where we put together a series of surveys, held events in different neighborhood parks, got people filling out the surveys, distributed them online as well, and gave people in the neighborhood an opportunity to talk about what they would like to see for our neighborhood moving forward, because we know that we are in line for an opportunity to do a planning effort with the city of Eugene now coming up in 2024. So the results of that survey are nothing we hadn't heard before. Everything in there is the same things that were in the Build a Better Bethel report. The visioning hasn't changed. It's just a matter of we need to actually achieve it. So first, the things that we love about our neighborhood: we have a really great sense of community. We have amazing parks, the parks in Bethel. If you haven't been out to the Bethel neighborhood, if you live elsewhere in Eugene or in the area, come check out the parks in Bethel. We've got some really, really nice spots. And our school district is fantastic. I'm going to avoid talking too much about that because of our next speaker. But we have excellent schools, excellent community. But there's also some things we really lack. We are an extremely residential neighborhood, very short on amenities for the people that live in Bethel. We mostly have to leave our neighborhood to get most of the things we need on a day-to-day basis. With that comes transportation challenges, as we have a lot of cars coming and going from the neighborhood for that reason. So more amenities that can give us community gathering options is something that everyone always talks about wanting and needing. And that also ties into the piece. We have this sense of community, but nowhere to gather, very few places to gather. And so community space would allow us to really get to know each other as neighbors in a way we kind of can't currently, help us be less isolated within our own homes and where we live. And then we also would like to have more public events for us to gather and for people from outside of Bethel to come visit us and join us as well. That would be another piece that would really drive how we could justify some of those amenities we want, is if people are coming into Bethel instead of just living there and leaving for work, leaving to go shopping, all of that, that would really drive our ability to justify to businesses that we are a place to open, to serve. So those are a few of the things that I would really like to see grow in our neighborhood that come up in all of these visioning surveys we've done, and I look forward to talking more about those pieces. And as I've said, one of the best things about the neighborhood for me, especially knowing it was where I wanted to raise a family, and now that I have a 3-year-old starting kindergarten in a couple of years, is the school district. I think the Bethel School District is a really wonderful partner that we have. It's actually been a little bit unique compared to, I think, a lot of the other neighborhood associations in town, that we have kind of our own school district. The Bethel Neighborhood Association and the Bethel School District have been able to partner in a way that I don't think the Southeast neighbors can partner with 4J, for example, because all the other neighborhoods are a fraction of 4J, but we have our own connection, and that's been really, really valuable, I think, in both directions. So to talk more about the district, I'd like to invite up Superintendent Craig Sproles.
I may have to monkey around a bit with this or not. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So thank you, Ty, for that introduction. And thinking about who we are in Bethel at this point in time, I think we're at a unique point in our history in Bethel and a unique point in our history as a community to be able to start visioning what holds us together as people. During the pandemic, I think we saw a lot of the social institutions that were holding us together before kind of fell away. And people had a difficult time finding connection with each other and finding community with each other and building that back together. So we are at the point right now of doing that together. One of the things I absolutely love about Bethel is we are a small community that holds each other tightly. And I have felt that as a new member of this community. I've been superintendent in Bethel for the last 3 years. Some of you may have heard that we've experienced some tragedies in Bethel recently. We've had some loss of student life in Bethel. And the way our community has embraced us, the way our community has embraced the families that have experienced that tragedy and are continuing to mourn, has been awe-inspiring and humbling for me. And sometimes in a tragedy like that, we really have an opportunity to surround and to love each other in new and unique ways. So I'm really excited to be able to talk with you a little bit today about what I think about our future is. When I was appointed superintendent, one of the things that we did over this last year was have hundreds and hundreds of conversations with our Bethel neighbors, our parents, our students, and our staff. And we framed the conversations about who have we been in the past, who are we right now in the present, and who are we dreaming to become. And what we heard from folks was the centrality of the school district in a place like Bethel is profound. When I was taught how to be a teacher, I've been in education for 27 years. I know I don't look it, but believe it or not, I have been. And I was taught a lot about how to teach reading. I was a science and math teacher, so I was taught a lot about pedagogy. And at that time, that's the role that schools served. We prided ourselves specifically in education of content. Over time, that's evolved. We are now one of the largest providers of food in our neighborhoods. We're providers of mental health services. We're providers of gathering spaces, like Ty said, and like Pat will mention as well. Bethel doesn't have a large community center for folks to gather. So by default, the school district is that. And so we provide space for neighborhood associations, we provide space for faith communities, we provide space for dialogue, for people to be able to come together. So the tagline that we came to out of listening and listening and listening about who is the district and who are we becoming together is our community said we want the district to be relevant, responsive, and joyful, and a place where our community can thrive. So thinking a little bit about what does relevancy mean, what does responsiveness mean, and how can we do that in a joyful way is something that we're living into that charge right now. And I think as we frame the future of Bethel together, how can we, in a way, relevancy in education and relevancy for neighborhoods is something we need to reimagine. How can we become a place that meets people for where they're at, not from how we expect them to show up? Some people can show up to meetings like this, and when we hold community gatherings, some people have access to meetings like this, others don't. So how can we extend the way that we meet the needs of our families and meet the needs of our community in emergent ways, which are relevant? Second thing is to think about responsiveness. How can we truly respond to the emerging needs of our families and the needs of our students and the needs of our community? One of the things that we're doing in Bethel right now is really expanding the ways that students can demonstrate expertise and genius. In the past, when I went to school, I was a science teacher, as I told you. The students who we really considered to be flashes of genius were the ones who could memorize information. So I was a big science teacher, so I had a lot of content information. The students who could memorize that information and bring it back to me in a way that I could then score it on a test were the ones that typically excelled. That is no longer where we're at today. We have this thing called a cell phone. So all the information I memorized as a science teacher to become a teacher, you can look it up right here. The next step for all of our lives, it's going to have profound impacts, is artificial intelligence. students we can develop, right now today, we can develop individualized plans that recognize the genius of students, provide them the feedback that they need to be able to succeed in an individualized way by using technology that is profoundly different. So I wonder, in a community like Bethel, can we think innovatively and in a creative way on how can we have a fabric of a community that brings folks together? And I think we can do that in a responsive way. Another thing I'm really, really proud of in Bethel that we're doing is creating lots of avenues for students. Some of them are really good at memorizing things still. We still want to be able to have opportunities for students who do that really well. But we also want to have opportunities for students who want to do things like build tiny homes. So we have a construction site that we just finished in Bethel where we're going to build and design. Our students are going to design tiny homes, and then they're going to build tiny homes on wheels and start thinking about what's the role of the school district in starting us thinking creative ways about reducing houselessness. And that's something that impacts a lot of people who live in Bethel. And how can we do things like partnerships with Peace Health, partnerships with the fire department, partnerships with the transit department, Lane Transit, to be able to say, can we provide avenues for students while they're in high school to get on the job training that can create them a path and demonstrate their brilliance if they may not be a person who memorizes a bunch of things. So the last part of our plan is to become, how can we become more joyful? And I'm a deep believer that joy isn't doing easy things well. Sometimes it is. Sometimes that's great to do easy things well, but there's true joy in a community when we do hard things well and stay in touch with each other. So that's the message of who we are in Bethel. The work that we have ahead of us isn't easy. How do we construct a project? How do we weave together the parts of this community to centralize that where people have a sense of belonging and a sense of engagement? How do we think about creating more of a Bethel neighborhood that's more walkable? If you've been in Bethel, one of the things that we see, kids can't walk to their neighborhood schools because our district has lots of big transection lines of lots of cars that kids can't cross. Or we have large retirement centers and mobile home centers where you can't walk through. So it pushes all of the walkability. You have to walk up through a major arterial and then back to your neighborhood school that you can see right across there, but you can't walk to it. So there are some big structural things. How do we think about unique partnerships to build a community center that can be the heart and soul of our community? And how do we do things about partnerships with like Boys and Girls Club and the Y to be able to get some services out in Bethel to serve our families? None of these are easy. All of these are hard. All of this involves dialogue. But I truly believe that the school district serves a role in all of us becoming more relevant, responsive, and ultimately joyful. And I know I have 30 seconds, but the last part of this is this notion of thriving. How can we truly thrive together? And I think one way that I would be remiss if I didn't say this, our doors are so wide open for folks to come into our schools and volunteer. We've had a difficult time getting people back into schools after COVID. And I understand why. We told people you can't come into our schools right now. And so people establish different patterns, but we have the need for adults, loving adults who love on our students and want a touch point for our students to come into our schools. We're wide open for that. We have the Bethel Mentor Program. It can be a low touch, 1 hour a week, and it can change the trajectory of a student. So if there's anyone listening or anyone in the audience who's thinking, what is a first step? These are really big ideas we're talking about today. These are really big ideas. But a big idea can start with a small act of service, a small act of kindness. And I think that's where it starts. So embracing our students, embracing our schools. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm a big believer in the possibility of Bethel and all of us working together to actualize that. So one of the things I love about Bethel is we have a lot of deeply invested local elected officials who have deep ties to Bethel and who have a vision for where we're headed. Commissioner Pat Farr is one of those, who is someone who we work a lot with the school district and with Pat I also want to say Pat's wife, Debbie, is one of our board members in Bethel. And it's just one of the things that knits Bethel together, our longtime service providers. So Pat, come on up and tell us what you think.
I didn't know Debbie was here. Hey, it's good to see you. You know, it's hard to follow both Ty and Craig because of Ty's brilliant vision of the future and Craig's boots on the ground with the greatest asset that we have in our district and in all of Elaine County. That's our kids. And it's hard to follow them. But first, I've got a bit of technical stuff I've got to deal with. First off, I'm going to set my timer for 8 minutes, which I've been told that I could have about 8 minutes. But that 8 minutes is not to tell me when to stop, but to let you know how far over I go. And the second thing is always really important to me, and you've got to indulge me in this. I love to take photographs of you all for my scrapbook. So thanks very much. You know what? I was asked to talk about the history of Bethel a little bit. And I thought, well, how am I qualified to talk about the history of Bethel? In this room is Steve Gilbert. Where are you, Steve? Right there in front of me. Steve Gilbert was born here. His dad was born here. Probably your grandparents were born here in Bethel. And if you know the Fairfield area, Fairfield Elementary, Fairfield Center, that's all been developed as the originally called the Fairfield Annex, not the Fairfield Annex, that is Bethel. And if I want to find history about Bethel, I'm going to go talk to Steve Gilbert because he can tell me things that happened before even I went to Bethel. Now, when did I go to Bethel? In 77, I just got back from basic training. I was getting ready to go back to college to finish my degree, and I took a job at a little hardware store called Jerry's. There were 11 of us working there. It was about the third largest hardware store in Eugene, maybe the fourth or fifth. But there were about 11 of us working there in a tiny little store, and things started happening at Jerry's, and I never went back to school. I stood at Jerry's for darn near a quarter of a century as we grew from 11 people to, if you shop at Jerry's, it's a pretty big place today. So we stayed in Bethel, and at the time we were living in East Springfield, so Debbie and I said, we need to cut down on your travel time. So we bought our first home in Bethel in 1978. We bought a home off of Royal Avenue in Bethel. We've been there ever since. And you know why we live in Bethel? Because it's the best place on earth to live. Why did our kids go to school in Bethel? Because it's the best school district, period, to send our kids to. Why are our grandkids going to school in Bethel? Because it's the best place to live and the best place to send our kids to school. We truly believe that, and if you don't believe it, then you're not invited to dinner at our house tonight. So, that being said, so regarding Bethel, I was working at Jerry's, and I heard that someone was leaving the Bethel School Board, and I was called and asked if I would put my name in the hat for the Bethel School Board. This was in 1991. And I did, not expecting to get on, but I became a member of the Bethel School Board. Subsequently, I became a Eugene City Councilor in 1995. Bobby Green had been appointed to be a county commissioner. He was our city councilor. And I'll mention that Ward 6 at that time went all the way beyond West 11th, all the way to the railroad tracks. It's about 4 times geographically larger than it is today. And ABC, Active Bethel Citizens, was literally 50% of the entire city of Eugene for one neighborhood group. So, Bobby Green recruited me to replace him on the Eugene City Council. I served there for 10 years on the Eugene City Council over 2 phases with 3 different mayors. The middle one, with only 3 different mayors, The last one, my favorite probably, is sitting right here in front of me, Kitty Piercy. Thank you for all the work you've done, Kitty Piercy. I also worked for years with Jim Torrey, and the first mayor that I worked with was my dear sweet Ruth Bascom. So I've been in Bethel for a long time. I served as a state rep from Bethel. I recruited Greg Evans to replace me on the Eugene City Council, and Greg Evans is currently our Eugene City Councilor from Bethel. And we have a rich, rich place to live. I have only 8 minutes to talk about the history of Bethel. Oh my gosh, I can't even cover my bullet points in that. But what I will say is that when we first moved to Bethel, somebody said to us, this was back in '78, why would you go to Felony Flats? And that was a commonly held belief that Bethel was Felony Flats. Later, I was working on a group called Envision Eugene, which included a lot of people from all over Eugene, trying to determine what is the future of the urban growth boundary of Eugene, for one thing, and the development inside of Eugene. And a woman, a very well-meaning woman on the board said, oh, I love Bethel. I really love Bethel. There's a junkyard out there that has the old traffic light from the end of my street. So she thought of my community as her junkyard. So we've experienced that through the years. And I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but I used to hear, and it used to gall me, Steve, when they talked about the 4 Eugene high schools. I said, Willamette's in Eugene, Willamette's in Eugene. And it was over and over again, I had to remind people that there were 5 public high schools. Well, now Bethel has 2. We have Kalapuya also. There are 6 public high schools in Eugene, and 2 of them are in Bethel. And our kids went to school in Bethel. I'm going to run out of time before I really get to all of the points that I want to make. But we want to talk about what is happening in Bethel, the evolution of Bethel, how it has become what it is today, what you see today. Let's talk about Beltline Road first. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, Beltline Road was a single highway from about Highway 99 all the way to West 11th. Over the course of about 7 years, there were 5 fatalities involved in that small stretch of highway. 3 at a man and his 2 children at the Beltline and Royal Avenue. A young man going to school at Willamette High School crossing at Barger Drive. Another person in a head-on collision at Barger Drive, and Jim Torrey's son, before he was a city councilor, was killed right there in that stretch of highway. So people were continually being killed in that stretch of highway. Steve Gilbert, I'm going to call your name a little bit, Steve, remembers that we really pushed hard to get an overpass over Barger Drive and an overpass over Royal Avenue. We did, and it happened during my tenure, just coincidentally, when I was a Eugene City Council. We finally got it done. And guess what? We don't have fatalities there anymore. Royal Avenue and Bethel and Barger Drive are now local streets, not intersections with what was a county highway is now a state highway. So everything became a lot more local at that point in time. Another thing I'll talk about is, Ty talked about our amazing parks in Bethel. They've not always been amazing. In fact, if you go to Irwin Park, no less than 20 years ago, Irwin Park was it was a place where a great deal of drug activity occurred, where a great deal of illegal activity occurred. Only 8 more minutes, is that what you said? I'll try. And we had a concerted effort of a lot of people around, mostly from Bethel, to turn Irwin Park into what is now a really wonderful location for people to take their families. Same thing happened with State Street Park. We added Mangan Park, and significantly, the one I want to talk about is Golden Garden Park. It's going to be a jewel in Eugene. When I was on the Eugene City Council, and when Debbie, who I'll talk a little bit more about in a few seconds, when Debbie, I think you were actually a state rep at the time, 2 young boys drowned in the ponds of Golden Garden. You'd go down there, and it was the banks were slippery. There were no trails. It was unkempt, and then these 2, one drowned trying to save the other one who slipped into the pond. Well, the city at that time stepped up its efforts really hard to fix Golden Garden Park. And if you go to Golden Garden Park today, you'll see a beautiful, beautiful place where you'd want to spend an afternoon with your family. You watch the baby geese in the spring. It's just a wonderful place to be. But significantly, I'll talk about the last thing I'll talk about, because there are so many things I can talk about, why Bethel is great. And it is great. One thing I'll talk about is the tremendous partnership between the school district and the city of Eugene. The first thing I'll talk about is fire response time. We have a fire station on Barger Drive, station number 6. It used to have just an EMS presence. And so if you had a heart attack, God forbid, or if there was a medical emergency, you'd have EMS presence pretty quickly. But there was no fire engine there because we couldn't fit a fire engine into that facility. So what happened was the city and the school district got together, and it was right about the time I was changing from the school board to the city council. And the school district gave land to the city of Eugene to allow Station 6 to expand, so that now, if you live in Bethel, just about any place in Bethel, you're going to have maybe a 90-second to 2-minute response time from a fire truck. And we experienced that not too long ago in my household. They were there immediately. We fixed that in partnership with the city of Eugene and the city and the school board. The second one, and this is the last thing I'll talk about because I could go on for a long time, is Bethel Park, our beautiful, beautiful Bethel Park, which is a city park. It's a Meadowview K through 8 elementary school. It's also a fourplex of a baseball field, excuse me, for American Legion. And that park is thriving. And someday we'll have a beautiful community park, maybe a YMCA. I don't know if those plans are off the board. But Bethel Park was owned by the school district. The school district deeded property to the city of Eugene in exchange for some other property. And we now have Bethel Park for the city, American Legion, and for the school district. So we can go on and on and on, but I'm going to mention that Debbie and I have spent our life in Bethel, really all of our life in Bethel. Debbie is now on the school board. I was lots of years ago. I still serve on the school board budget committee, and we love Bethel, and we would love to sit and talk to you for hours and hours and hours about why Bethel is the best place on God's green earth to live. Thank you. And Joel, I think back to you.
You should have seen the look of shock on Pat's face when I told him he had 8 minutes. Thank you to our speakers, Pat Farr, Ty Pruce Zimmerman, and Dr. Craig Spoles. We'll begin our Q&A in a few minutes. But first, I'd like to thank the business and in-kind sponsors whose support helps make City Club possible. Thank you to our gold sponsors, Network Charter School, Hirschner Hunter LLC, Evans Elder Brown and Subert, and to our in-kind sponsors, KRVM 90.1, 91.9 Radio, Alpha IT, Dotson Photography, Ninkasi Better Living Room of Blessed Memory, and Claim 52. Also a special thank you to our award-winning public radio station, KLCC 89.7, for airing City Club programs Monday night, 7 p.m. For those of you listening at home right now, your household is one of several thousand tuning into City Club on KLCC, and we're glad you're here. You can also get recent City Club programs on KLCC, as well as our City Club's YouTube channel and as podcasts. We'll take a brief break before returning to the last part of our program where you will have the opportunity to question the speakers. Thank you.
And you did a good job today.
See you. Thanks for helping us today. This connection right here doesn't seem to be too good. A mechanical connection. It's okay.
So it helps. It helps.
Okay, would the speakers come and take those chairs, please? Folks, if you want to ask a question, please come to the microphone. Commissioner? Folks, if you want to ask a question, please come to this microphone over here. Okay. Line up. First questioner.
Thank you all for being here today. Karin Knutson, City Club member. Was really curious. I appreciated so much the ways in which you presented to us the layers and the networks of the community that are in Bethel, both the people and the places in the community. And Craig, I was especially captured by some of what you and Ty shared around the unique opportunities for partnership that exist in Bethel because of the structure of the community. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how Bethel School District and the community of Bethel, through the Neighborhood Association, ABC, but also through other partners, how you've been able to uniquely respond to the current context that kids and families are facing post-COVID, and in the recovery in terms of what we are expecting of our educators and in our schools, but also just within community. It's a really unique circumstance you're describing, and I'd love to hear more about it.
Do you want to go first, Tim? Okay. Yeah, thank you for that question. And I think out of necessity, partnerships can be built. And so at the school district, some of the things that we are doing and surrounded by our community are to be able to provide mental health supports, I think is one of the things that we are striving to do. And again, out of necessity, that is a key role of our school districts right now. And not only to provide mental health supports for our students, but also for our families and our educators who are serving our students as well. So we have lots and lots of networks of folks. And one of the things we've discovered, this isn't unique to Bethel, but it's something particularly important to Bethel, is having resources come to us. Because it's really hard for families at time, and we talked about transportation as one of the hindrances, but if you set up appointments and the family needs to get their student from Bethel all the way downtown and then back in the middle of the day for a 45-minute therapy appointment, when you have two working parents, that is almost an impossible hurdle to get over. So one of the unique partnerships we've established is bringing our community health providers into our schools. And so we're really proud that we now have a mental health provider in every one of our 11 schools. And at a place like Willamette High School, we have several different providers doing both on-the-spot emergent needs, but also things like drug and alcohol therapy. There's also a movement right now to be able to create a recovery high school in Lane County, which I'm really, really excited about, which are people who are students who have been struggling with dependency, and to be able to create a route for them to be able to get a high school diploma and address the fundamental issues that have led them to develop a dependency at the same time is kind of a profound way, and we're partnering with a lot of local agencies to be able to make that happen, and we're excited about that possibility. So those are just a couple.
Yeah, absolutely. The district has all sorts of these great initiatives on that front, and then where the neighborhood association comes into play is district representatives are regulars at both our board and general meetings, so we're always keeping up to date on new initiatives like what the ones Craig just talked about when they come out, and talking with people from the Safe Routes to Schools team, people from the mental health team, to keep us informed as a neighborhood association board as much as possible about what's being done in those areas. And then those are landing in our newsletters, and we're sending out that information to the broader community as best we can. So that's, I think, where the partnership piece just comes into play in that direction. When the school district does something great, we try to help them out. And then when we're trying to do something, the school district is always there with spaces. That partnership goes back to the very beginning of my tenure with ABC. That reactivation election I talked about, as well as a whole bunch of the meetings leading up to it that the city required us to go through first, were all held in district buildings.
Thank you.
Pat, any response?
Well, don't think I'm not opinionated on this, particularly when we talk about behavioral health and public safety and housing and homelessness. But they've said enough on that subject. Thank you.
And now, Pat Farr's favorite mayor, Kitty Piercy.
Yeah, Kitty Piercy. So I spent, as you know, a lot of time with Bethel when I was mayor, and I know how much everybody lives there loves Bethel. So, and that's a wonderful, wonderful quality of a part of the community to care so deeply about its role in our larger community. I guess I would like to hear from you all and think about this, because you all have opinions, I know. How can the larger city of Eugene be a better partner, a better friend, a better collaborator for the future of Bethel?
Good question. Who wants to go first?
I'll say just a few things very quickly, and let Ty and Craig talk about the school district and the future, the vision that you have and ABC has. But really, Mayor Piercy, in the past, and you've been a large part of this, the city has really, particularly in the last 30 years or so, has really bent over backwards to make certain that Bethel felt as if it were a part of the city. It didn't. You know, after the annexation in the mid-1960s, and a lot of those folks still live there, they hated Eugene. And every single Eugene measure that got put on the ballot was failed by Bethel. And if you look at where the failure happened, it happened in Bethel. That got better through your work, through the work of other city councilors, Bobby Green initially, and through the work that we did together. And really, Bethel really has a different feeling about the way the city of Eugene looks at it. We look at our fire station, we look at our parks, we look at our transportation system. It used to be that you couldn't ride a bike downtown from Bethel safely. Well, you can now. So those things are happening, but the future is ahead of us, and I'll let Ty talk about that.
Yeah, and I'll say I have no doubt that that's gotten far, far better than it was before my time. It's not, that work is not done in building that relationship. There's still, that's something that came up a lot in our visioning surveys, there's still a strong sentiment within Bethel of feeling to some extent excluded. I think it's a lower extent than maybe it was 30 years ago, but that gap has not yet been erased. And the things that we have gotten in those partnerships with the city are excellent. All of them have come from extensive citizen involvement first. So it feels like we have fought for what we've gotten, and we're going to have to continue fighting for more. So I'm confident that we can continue to build on that growth that's happened and work our way towards a point where those gaps are fully erased someday. We're not there yet, and we really do need to continue building upon those partnerships with the city and continue bringing in more and more. And so we're still out here fighting for what we see Bethel needing, which I think probably going to come up in a future question. So I'm going to pause there for the moment.
So thank you for this question, and I think there is, and you're probably sensing a bit of some historical feelings about this on who we are in Bethel, which side of the tracks we're on, why the neighborhoods were created in the way they are. So there's a bit of a history there that we're thinking about. I think one of the things that has really helped accelerate the partnership is out of necessity. And so and thinking about the greater Eugene area, we have this really big institution just right over there called the University of Oregon, which does a lot of groundbreaking research in behavioral mental health services. They started the Balmer Center in Portland to be able to specifically address this need. They also have a host of researchers there that do a lot of research and partnership with us. And they also do a lot in 4J in Springfield as well. So partnering between the school districts, we also have a project called Project Hope, working with St. Vinny's to be able to build homes. And we are placing students at the Hope Project, high school students, to be able to work alongside tradespeople as they are building. The vision is to build a home a day, 350 homes being produced in partnership with St. Vinny's and the 3 school districts, actually the 17 school districts around Lane County. So out of those necessities to be able to solve these big problems, we can't solve these big problems by being secularist and by trying to just do our little part of this. You only solve big problems by big collaboration and big partnerships, and I think we're getting there.
And just in case it doesn't come up, Mayor Piercy, the thing that we all dwell on greatly is the plight of people who are houseless and homeless. Many of whom are suffering from behavioral health issues, many of whom are intersected with the criminal justice system. And there's a concentration in Bethel of services. The Dusk to Dawn program at St. Vincent de Paul is in Bethel. Sponsors is in Bethel. A lot of services are concentrated in Bethel, which sometimes makes it feel like an overload. So the county and the city and the school district and Bethel community are working together to make certain that that's distributed and that we are providing the services that people need to get into housing.
I thought of one more thing I just want to add in terms of the concept I brought up of Bethel having to fight for a lot of what we've gotten. I want to give some credit to one person who wasn't able to join us today for a conflict, but Councilor Greg Evans has definitely led a whole lot of that in his tenure as city councilor for us. Also, it's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Greg.
My name is Sue Craig, and I have only been in Bethel for 2 years, and I am learning so much about it. And today you have talked about all the mental health issues and drug issues and so on. Those are incredibly important. I want to go to a maybe lighter area, but I do want to talk a little bit about history here. I love golden gardens, and I love the birds, and I love the turtles. And if you build it the way you're saying you're going to in this city, there aren't going to be very many birds, and those turtles are not going to be looked after because you're going to have playing fields and lights and noise all around it and a lot of cars. And maybe there's a different way to do that. Maybe if you think about other areas for sports complexes and buildings and that kind of thing that you're thinking of in the future. At the very least, maybe we could get them really close to 99 and the north side of the whatever the park is at that point. There's still some land there I see that somebody owns. Who knows? Maybe they would be nice and donate that.
Excuse me, ma'am, do you have a question?
Maybe. My question is, think about it maybe a little differently from the point of history, before all you white men and women came here, me included, and what it was like then. And wouldn't it be an incredible place to have something that honors the Kalapuya and the other and their smaller groups that were here, and build something really fabulous? And of course, now I'm speaking as a white person. I haven't heard from the indigenous groups. But wouldn't that be an incredible place to build something very unique, where I could go and maybe, I don't think fry bread was part of their culture here, but I love fry bread. Maybe they do really special things with what they had here. So I think it could be really interesting, and I would love it if you all would think in those directions. And educationally, my goodness, that would be really neat. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul? Okay, go ahead.
So Sue, thank you for that, and I think acknowledging when we think about history, we think about history within the very near future, not our near past, not further past. So I appreciate that. One of the things that we're working really, really hard to do, we have a high school named Kalapuya High School, and Kalapuya High School works really, really well with our tribal communities to be able to create the Kalapuya farm in a way that is respectful of the land that it's placed on and the peoples who populated those lands. Some of the things our students are doing are going out to tribal lands and doing a lot of replanting of native plants to be able to incorporate that. We actually bring the seeds back to Kalapuya, our high school. We grow them there, and then we go back and plant them in their native lands. And so I appreciate that reminder as something we need to be cognizant of.
And ever so tiny quickly, when we built Fairfield Elementary School, you may recall that as they were excavating, they found evidence of a former gathering site of the people who lived here first. And in the lobby of Fairfield Elementary School, I think it's still there, there's a recognition of the fact that that was occupied before Fairfield was there.
And then I also want to echo something Craig said earlier in his intro piece, which is that this is hard work to get to where we want to be. And part of that is that we have to find balances between some of our conflicting needs. And so sometimes there's a lot of nuance. It's not all completely binary. One of the things that would benefit our neighborhood greatly is something that brings people into Bethel, and the sports park can serve that purpose. There really isn't any other piece of land where it could fit. But one of the things that's amazing about our neighborhood now is the beauty of our parks, and Golden Gardens is one of my favorites. That house we rented was on Golden Gardens Street that brought us into Bethel in the first place. Golden Gardens Park was the first amenity of the Bethel neighborhood that I personally enjoyed after moving here. And so I definitely hope that the sports park can both benefit the neighborhood by its presence and as a tourism draw, and the implications that can have on other business development and providing us some of the other amenities we currently lack, including maybe helping us be less of a food desert. But also, I hope that that can happen without disturbing what's beautiful about the park now. There's still another round of civic engagement on exactly what the designs for that park will look like before anything is finalized. So I'm hoping we can find a good balance on that.
I have one live question and 3 that came in that were texted in. So hopefully quick questions, quick answers.
This is a question that came in from the live stream. Thomas Hayura writes that small communities have been impacted by a reduction in local, accessible journalism across the country, to wit, the Register Guard. How might this have affected Bethel? How can Bethel tell its story in the 21st century?
Really, it's a great question for like a new forum. I'm not sure if it's a great question for a quick answer.
Quick answer is it is a need, and it is something that we felt the loss, particularly with the Register Guard and the coverage of our communities and what's going on. And it is on us to be able to get the word out in multiple ways. to be able to keep folks informed. Things like social media, things like forums, to be able to craft our own message. There's power in that as well. So we're not waiting for somebody else to craft a message of who we are and who we are becoming, but we have to get out there and do it.
And Craig, the reason I pointed to you directly is because in Bethel, more than really any other part of town that I'm aware of, the school district is the throbbing heart of the community. And much of the communication that happens in our community comes through your newsletter, through your take-home items. What's our population of the district now?
About 5,100.
5,100 kids, probably something like 4,000 families that each have daily communication with the school district.
And there's always the Eugene Weekly. You're welcome. Another question. There are no gift shops, coffee shops, etc. in Bethel. Was that part of the original planning effort or a result of lack of planning? Either way, what are the plans and intentions to integrate future cultural activities?
Yeah, a sit-down coffee shop is a personal dream of mine. I would really love to have a space like that. I love my coffee, and it would be nice to be able to have it in a community setting instead of alone in my house.
Well, I'll say this. There is a gift shop in Bethel, and there is a kind of a concentration of places that you can sit and have a cup of coffee, and you can have a hot dog, you can have a burrito. That's called Jerry's. But we do need more. I acknowledge that.
I have a question. You all spoke about the need of a community center. Is there any possibility of building a community center near Echo Hollow Park, the pool, that would provide other services but could integrate the swimming that Echo Hollow provides?
Peterson Barn is wonderful, and the school district has a lot of opportunities.
So you might, if you've driven by there, you probably have seen the construction of the new cascade going on, and I need to mention one of the ways that the Bethel community has supported the school district time and again is by passing construction bonds, and our facilities are top-notch. If you get an opportunity to look where the current cascade is, right behind it, we're building a new state-of-the-art middle school that will have some meeting spaces in it. We have a strong partnership right now with Boys and Girls Club that we were able to pay for out of our COVID dollars, and they're running a strong after-school program at Prairie Mountain. We would love to be able to think broadly about the Golden Gardens and have a large community center as part of that dreaming and visioning as a possibility in partnership with someplace like the Boys and Girls Club or the Y.
Pat? Or anybody else? One last question. Council has been considering which neighborhood to focus on. Bethel and the university neighborhoods have both been pitched by members of council. Why should Bethel win?
So that doesn't have to be a win or lose. Council has proposed a more streamlined planning process that will allow them to do both neighborhoods simultaneously, and that's what's been promised to us. The exact details and logistics of that process aren't quite clear yet. There's still meetings going on, and then we're going to get a pitch on what it exactly looks like. So our mission is to make sure streamlined doesn't mean just another visioning round, because we already have our vision. We've done that before. We need implementation. We need results. But we do have a planning process coming, and so does university. It's not a conflict on that front. Council found a way to prevent that from being a choice and a conflict. So now our job is just to engage with that process, and I hope any Bethel residents listening that have thoughts are going to come out and join us when that happens through 2024. And make sure that that process gets us the results we actually need as a neighborhood to fill in some of these gaps, the things that we're still missing.
Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Please join us in thanking our panelists for such a great job. I think the people of Bethel can be proud of the presentation today and confident about the future. This has been our December 1st conversation at City Club of Eugene. Please join us next week, December 8th, for our next program discussing the closure today of Eugene's only hospital. See you all next week, and as required by Council Resolution 4721, go Ducks.